Hello again, everybody. This is Steve Kallas speaking of sports. I'm here with Anthony Sorbellini of WestchesterCountyPost.com, and we're here to talk about the fallout from the NCAA ruling relating to giving spring sports seniors, and only spring sports seniors, an extra year of eligibility. Now, as you know, they're allowed to come back next year. Scholarships have to be worked out and all that stuff. So there's already maybe a little downside there. If you had a half scholarship this year, doesn't mean you'll get a half scholarship next year. You'll probably get less. But there's even been some pushback from at least one individual school and one individual league. That individual school is Wisconsin. That individual league is the Ivy League. And I just wanted to read one quote from each, Wisconsin and from the Ivy League. The Wisconsin quote comes from Barry Alvarez, and if you have followed college football for a long time, you know that Barry Alvarez was the coach of Wisconsin, very successful football coach, and now he's been the AD for many years at Wisconsin, and he really does not want anybody to come back to Wisconsin for their fifth year. And here's this quote, which at least to me sounds kind of harsh quote. What we tried to do was encourage our seniors to go ahead, and if you're going to graduate and move on with your life. We appreciate everything that you've done, but move forward. The future is in question, and we can't promise you anything. So on that quote, it sounds like a clear, don't come back here, you're not getting any scholarship money. Don't call us, we'll call you. And it doesn't seem that there's any exceptions to that rule, at least at Wisconsin. I didn't know that the NCAA could grant the eligibility and then the school could just unilaterally take it away, but that seems where we are right now. The other quote is from the AD of the University of Pennsylvania. The Ivy League has decided as a league not to give anybody a fifth year of eligibility, which again, this encompasses the whole Ivy League, Columbia, Cornell, etc., Harvard, etc. And this quote is from Grace Calhoun, the athletic director of Penn, and she said, quote, the Ivy League believes in, quote, undergraduate eligibility and decided to stick with that, close quote. So they've kind of shut the door entirely as a league. Later in that article, she did say there could be some way where they might be able, an individual could work around it. For example, what came to my mind, I'm a spring senior. They end my career, but maybe I can come back next year. Maybe I'll take it incomplete in my entire caseload and come back next year. Clearly, they don't want graduates playing in the Ivy League next year. So those are the two that I found. Wisconsin specifically, a Big Ten school, as you know, and the Ivy League. Anthony Sorbellini, what are your thoughts on that?
Slippery slope, to say the least. I think, the NCAA, when the first reports first came out that the spring seasons were going to be suspended, and I shouldn't even say suspended, I should say canceled. Many people, especially student athletes, were clamoring that red shirt Corona year was a big hashtag trending on social media.
All right.
But so there was definitely pressure for the NCAA as a whole to kind of get out in front of this, try to do something for these now who would be preparation graduating seniors for them to come back. But it almost seems like maybe in the shadows that the NCAA didn't break down that I guess it can go by a case by case basis in terms of the school or even league. So ultimately in the end, the NCAA gives all these schools these scholarship dollars. So I guess it kind of is the end overall the school's kind of responsibility in a way, or kind of their choice to choose where they want that scholarship money to go. But in terms of the Barry Alvarez quote, I think that's kind of just a slap in the face. I don't agree with that quote at all. Yes, you try to prepare for everything as naturally as possible. For getting someone to tell them to kind of get up, that type of thing. You can't prepare for this. Yes, you try to prepare for pretty much everything, but you don't prepare for everything just being cut short. There's millions of people, millions of Americans right now on unemployment. You kind of can't tell them, just be like, hey, suck it up, it's going to be better. No, nobody planned, nobody had any idea that this was going to blow into the enormous pandemic, worldwide pandemic that it is now. So coming out and saying to, especially, to kind of kids who are starting to get their lives in order, post college and into their careers, their lives ahead of them, telling them that, just suck it up. I mean, I understand to a degree it is life, but at the same point, let's have a little bit of sympathy.
No, 100% correct. And that's the whole point. The notion there are life lessons here and things happen. In this situation, because the NCAA has already acted to make a way for these kids to come back if they want, I thought that was a great idea. As you know, I wanted the winter athletes to get it as well because none of them played in the postseason tournament or virtually none of them, and certainly didn't play in March Madness, for example, men and women's basketball. Alvarez did go on to say later on that, there were a lot of unintended consequences, and there are, but that's why there's a framework for those seniors to come back next year. So there was some pushback from some seniors. One guy was going to grad school. He said, look, I'm going to grad school. I'm not coming back. But there are guys who maybe never played in a conference championship, never mind an NCAA championship, and they should at least be given the opportunity. At least at Wisconsin, there was a pushback on the unilateral nature of essentially getting out of here. Don't come back. And, of course, if you tried to come back, I think the first thing they would say to you is, well, you're not getting the nickel in financial aid or scholarship money, so maybe we'll let you if you're going to pay that $50,000 or $60,000 or whatever it costs for a year at Wisconsin, with room and board, of course. So I think it's short-sighted by Wisconsin. I think it's disappointed by the Ivy League. Oh, we've only let undergraduates play, so we're not going to do that next year. This is such a once-in-a-lifetime weird exception. And again, to the NCAA's credit, at least for spring, not for winter, they've provided, a way for you to do it. But in the end, these at least individual schools, all the Ivy League schools in Wisconsin, have decided to give nobody any chance to come back next year.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, obviously, Wisconsin's such a bigger school than pretty much any of the schools in the Ivy League. And I wonder if it's going to be that the Ivy League has decided to pretty much halt everything because of the size of the small league. They're not going to have truly, not saying that there isn't, big name stars who haven't come out of Ivy League schools and made a career for themselves professionally in sports, but you're going to know a lot more professional athletes coming from Wisconsin than you're going to know from Columbia, Cornell, anywhere. I mean, J.J. Watt coming from Wisconsin. I couldn't even name. I covered Columbia sports for the fall. I couldn't even tell you one guy's name. It's just the nature of the sports. I was serving as a photography intern. I couldn't tell you anybody's names. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a correlation between, the size of the league as opposed to the size of the school to see who's going to let people come in and out. Again, Wisconsin and the Ivy League are such complete polar opposites in terms of sheer size. So we'll just have to see that moving forward.
Yeah, very good points, Anthony. We'll have to see if any of the schools follow Wisconsin. People seem to think a lot would. But the research I did today, I couldn't find another one yet. And I think maybe what you said, it kind of comes out as pretty harsh from Barry Alvarez, who, again, is an old school football coach. So he's not really going to, say it with some sympathy or empathy. He was just like, don't come back. So we'll have to follow that some more. But I think it's kind of sad that you could, according to the NCAA, get the chance, and now you're not. This is Steve Kallas, speaking of sports, along with Anthony Sorbellini, and we'll see you the next time.